Chair of PALCUS, and I welcome you on behalf of Angela Costa, our chairwoman, who is unable to be with us this evening. The congressional reception has become part of PALCUS' outreach and government relations program for several years now. We are thankful to Congressman Jim Costa, co-chair of the Portuguese American Congressional Caucus, for hosting us here this evening. We are honored to have with us some very special guests this evening, including His Excellency Domingos Vital, Ambassador of Portugal to the United States, members of the Friends of Portugal in the U.S. Senate and the Portuguese American Caucus of the House of Representatives. Also with us this evening are charter members Manuel Fernandes, Judge Philip Raposo, and Ana Ferreira. Thank you for joining us. The Portuguese American Caucus of the House of Representatives was established in 1995 with 38 congressmen. It was founded by Congressman Patrick J. Kennedy of Rhode Island and co-chaired with Congressman Richard Pombo of California. Today, the Portuguese American Caucus in the House of Representatives is chaired by Jim Costa of California, David Cicilline of Rhode Island, and Lee Zeldin of New York. The Friends of Portugal in the U.S. Senate was created to serve as the parallel body of the Portuguese American Caucus in the House of the Representatives in 1995. It was first co-chaired by Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell from Colorado and Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island. Senator Reed still co-chairs along with Senator Patrick Toomey from Pennsylvania. Today, there are Senate caucus members representing Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, California, and Pennsylvania. In the interest of being respectful of the very busy schedules of caucus members who made time to be present this evening, Congressman Costa has graciously yielded his time as first speaker to Senator Jack Reed.
Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and let me thank Jim Costa for not only his gracious yielding of time, but his great leadership and friendship. Thanks, Jim, for what you do. David Cicilline, great congressman from the state of Rhode Island, carrying on a great tradition here. Not mine, but Patrick Kennedy's. I want to also just congratulate PALCUS for what you do for the Portuguese American community. Marie Fraley is here, and she is sort of the dynamo for PALCUS and Rhode Island elsewhere. Rhode Island's well represented. We have a Lieutenant Governor here, Lieutenant Governor McKee, and we've got a former Senator, Dan DuPont, so we are here in force because we believe the Portuguese community is one of the greatest communities in this country and has done so much for the United States. And let me also recognize Ambassador Vital. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your excellent work on behalf of your country and our collaboration with Portugal. The United States and Portugal have had a strong and long historic relationship. We are committed to democracy, to justice and freedom. We're also longtime allies through NATO, and we're closer together through the U.S.-Portugal Bilateral Commission to enhance our activities and work more effectively together. Our close friendship has grown up over the years, and it's vibrant, it's thriving, and the reason is because we have so many thriving, vibrant Portuguese American communities in the United States. Rhode Island is an example of that. My mother grew up in Fox Point, Rhode Island, and Mary Louise Monahan spoke fluent Portuguese because she lived in a household with the Bichot family, and she had to prove it one day when the Sisters of St. Dorothy would not accept her into the sewing school because they didn't believe an Irish little girl could speak Portuguese until she sang the Portuguese national anthem. We are very much related in Rhode Island to each other, and we love the Portuguese American community. I just want to commend Jim and David for their work on the House side. Pat Toomey and I on the Senate side, we have much to do to make sure we maintain this relationship, not only maintain it, but grow it. Thank you for what you're doing. PALCUS is a key part of Portuguese-American relationship. So thank you very, very much. Obrigado.
Thank you, Senator Reed, for making the time to be here with us and for your kind words. I'd like to now share a message that has been forwarded from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, with best wishes on the occasion of this congressional reception. I am pleased to greet the Portuguese American Leadership Council of the United States. I welcome your efforts to ensure the well-being of Portuguese Americans, a diverse community making important contributions in the United States and Portugal. Allow me to underscore the importance of your activities focusing on youth and education. These are testing times for people everywhere as the world faces urgent challenges such as rising intolerance and inequality. Inclusive dialogue and international cooperation are the best tools to address these and other global challenges, but simply saying this is not enough. We need to show that multilateralism delivers results and that we are mobilizing solutions that respond to people's fears and anxieties. That is what the United Nations strives to do every day, from peacekeeping to humanitarian assistance, from defending human rights to promoting sustainable development. In September, I'm convening a summit in New York to raise ambition in addressing climate change, the paramount threat of our time. I will count on your support. In the spirit of shared heritage and purpose, I look forward to strengthening our partnership and wish you the best for a productive gathering. As I mentioned previously, Chairwoman Angela Cicilline is unable to be here with us from California. She sends her heartfelt gratitude for all of your presence here this evening and wants me to let you all know that she is here in spirit. She and I would especially like to thank the generous sponsors of this event, Florentino Gregorio from Anchor Construction, Anibal Ramos from Potomac Concrete, Zulmira Miraj from Virginia Contractor Supply, Manuel Fernandes from Fort Myer Construction, and Metro Paving Corp. Thank you all for your support. Your generosity allows us to continue to be the voice of the Portuguese American people. I would now like to share with you Angela's greetings and an outline of some of the new initiatives that PALCUS has been working on. Message from the chair of PALCUS. Welcome everyone to the PALCUS biannual congressional reception. We are honored to have you all here with us for this important event that helps us to maintain strong engagement with the Portuguese American Caucus, Friends of Portugal, and other key government influencers and community leaders on behalf of the Portuguese community. This reception, along with many other PALCUS initiatives, such as our Politicus podcast, meetings on the Hill, and our biannual meeting of Portuguese American elected officials that we host in conjunction with the Embassy of Portugal, are designed to engage lawmakers and the community in conversation and action. PALCUS has accomplished much over the past few years, but there are two key initiatives I'd like to highlight tonight. First is our PALCUS Index National Survey, the only national survey of the Portuguese community across the country. Our inaugural survey showed that we, as a community, are more civically active than average Americans, as we have a very high voting rate. We have participated in political campaigns, and one of our biggest concerns is not having enough Portuguese Americans in public office at every level of government. We hope to garner more responses this year and demonstrate where we are. PALCUS as a national organization and our friends in Portuguese American caucuses need to focus our efforts to further the success and representation of the Portuguese community. Second is our Make Portuguese Count campaign for the US 2020 census. This campaign is the most ambitious initiative that PALCUS has taken on in our 27-year history, and we are doing this because getting a complete count of Portuguese and Portuguese Americans in the US Census is of paramount importance. We are reaching out to more than 650 organizations across the country and are signing up individual captains in each state to help with grassroots efforts in spreading awareness and education as to why it's important for our community to participate in this census and the benefits to us when we have a complete count of the Portuguese community. Having an impact in these areas requires full support of all members of the caucus and friends, and we also need your help to strengthen these two groups with new members who represent districts and states with high populations of Portuguese. As we track changes in the Portuguese population through census data, we can see that Portuguese are settling in non-traditionally Portuguese areas for job opportunities and retirement. States such as Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, and Washington State can be tapped for caucus members because of their growing populations of Portuguese Americans. We have our work cut out for us, but we are excited about the opportunities, and we look forward to working with all of you and your staff in the coming months and years to take action on these important items. Thank you again for attending this evening, and I personally look forward to working with you. So PALCUS is proud to announce that the Portuguese American Congressional Caucus now has an official logo. We are debuting this logo today in the form of pins worn by the caucus members that are present. We thank João Francisco of Lunaire in New York City, who generously sponsored the design of the logo. The next portion of the program is where Congressman Jim Costa gets to reclaim his time. So I call him up to the podium.
dia, meus amigos. Como está? Tudo bem? Tem muitos problemas agora? We have muitos problemas aqui. É verdade. Both co-chair David Cicilline and I, along with our very, very dear friend, Senator Jack Reed, are so honored to have all of you here. Mr. Ambassador, Your Honor, Senator Dan, and all of you are a part of the incredible rich fabric that makes up the Portuguese communities throughout our country. And you make a difference in so many different ways. The fact is that you know, you look at the influence that Portugal has had going back to the age of discoveries throughout the world. And we have made our mark. And the notion that PALCUS brings to this body, to our representatives here in Washington, D.C., is a calling, I think, that we all feel in the corazón, you know? Because it's important that we, as Americans of Portuguese descent, not only honor our history, not only honor our heritage and our culture, but also the incredible contributions in science, in the arts, in business, in almost every facet of life. I am so proud of each and every one of you, as I know you are proud of yourselves and your families and the communities in which you play a major role. And that's what really PALCUS is all about. We're trying to ensure that we extend that reach. And our vice chair here, on behalf of our chair, I think spoke very well of the importance of the Portuguese communities and the role that PALCUS is attempting to do in expanding that reach so that we can better advocate on the issues that are important to Portuguese communities, which are important to all Americans. Congressman David Cicilline and I feel very strongly about the honor and the privilege we have to represent you in our nation's capital. We're working on legislation that David will talk about in a moment. But the fact is that we get stronger when we work together. And that's really, I think, the goals that PALCUS has set forward, not only with the census, but also with other efforts in terms of providing that outreach, exchanges. One of my friends from New York was asking me, how do we get young people more active in the Portuguese communities, in politics? And I don't know that there is a secret sauce, but in California we've had some success. And I think a lot of it deals with the Portuguese communities that have gotten ingrained both in Southern California and the San Joaquin Valley. I think a lot of it has to do with how these immigrant population came over 150 years in some incredible ways, as whalers, as people, if you're from the Azores, like so many of us are, you know, there were two industries in the Azores, fishing and dairy. And my family didn't fish, so you know what we did. But I was just at a NATO meeting with members of the NATO representatives from Europe, Portugal being one of the founding members of NATO. And we had 20 representatives, parliamentarians, representing NATO countries, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and we had 2 Portuguese representatives there. And as a congressional member, a NATO representative, they asked me to be there with them. Now, under full disclosure, I know this is going to sound, so I had not had any time off for 8 months. I begged and pleaded with my staff. I really needed to get away. So on my own nickel, I quietly booked reservations, and during the Irish, recess, we call St. Patrick's, I went to Maui. Okay, that has nothing to do with anything about this story, but I'll shorten it up. So they said, well, we've got all these NATO members in Honolulu meeting with our defense attachés, Admiral Davison, and seeing what the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and the Army are doing in terms of our Pacific commitment. So you'll love this, David. So Tuesday night I had open, so I ended my vacation after 4 days. I flew to Honolulu, led the delegation from the U.S. perspective, and I had dinner with Ed Case, one of our representatives there. And he has an interesting background. Four generations of families in Hawaii, and his children are an eighth Portuguese. And he's from Overland, Ohio originally, his great-great-grandfather. And he tells me how they got there. So we talk about the Portuguese in Hawaii. Now this is not a conversation you would normally think of, two members of Congress in Honolulu. And he says, have you been to Leonard's? I said, no. He said, oh, you gotta go to Leonard's. I says, what is Leonard's? He says, it's a Portuguese bakery established in 1952. He says, and they make the best malasadas anywhere in the entire world. Well, what did I do the next morning? I got up at 6 o'clock. I had my coffee, I go to Leonard's. There's a line of Japanese out the door, it's amazing. So I bragged all day long. The last day when we were leaving with our NATO delegation, and I bragged to our two Portuguese House of Deputy members, one from the Azores, and I went and got 2 boxes of malasadas hot. And I got on the bus and I passed them out to all these Europeans. And they thought this was wild. I said, you gotta come all the way to Hawaii to get a Portuguese donut. I only say that story because I just wanna remind us all of the incredible reach that Portuguese have had throughout the world. Incredible reach. And the contributions that PALCUS has made in bringing us together as a member of this Portuguese caucus is my honor and privilege. And working together, we will continue to grow. And we have our annual gala in October here, right? In Washington, D.C. No, in Sacramento. It was in Washington. It's in my home state. She said, you're not there. So I'm going to make every effort to be there. It's on a weekend, right?
Yeah, Columbus Day weekend.
Oh, okay. Well, that's an Italian event. Portuguese will be well established in Sacramento on October 12th. Mr. Ambassador, we hope to finally get you to California. So, anyway, without further ado, I've spoken longer than I did, but you will introduce our dear friend and co-chair from Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
Okay, a gentleman who needs no introduction. But Congressman David Cicilline. Catherine, I'll let you do the honors. Real leader in the Congress, and I will tell you, he is a rising star. He is. In so many different ways, and we're honored to have him as a co-chair of the Portuguese caucus.
Thank you, Jim. You always have to be nervous when they say he doesn't need an introduction, that it's going to be followed by because he doesn't deserve one. But at least Jim didn't do that. I'm really thrilled to be here. First, to say welcome to so many friends from Rhode Island who are here. Dan DuPont, who served with extraordinary distinction as a state senator in Rhode Island for many years and a great friend. Our extraordinary lieutenant governor who is here, Dan McKee, Tony Silva, his chief of staff, another great leader in the community, and so many, Tony Simon, another great leader in Rhode Island, and just so many wonderful friends. And I think in so many ways, PALCUS, and where's Marie? Marie Fraley. PALCUS is an extraordinary organization that does such incredible advocacy and really highlights the success of the Portuguese American community. And I think Rhode Island, as a representative from the state of Rhode Island, I'm in a unique position to really speak about the impact that the Portuguese American community has had in my state, and I think as an example to really the world, because there's really not another community that has had a more profound impact on our state. I mean, you look at the leadership of the Portuguese community in medicine, in politics, in education, in the arts, and it's really the story of immigration to America. People who came here, worked hard, came here and brought their values of family and faith and community and helped build a great state. And we are really blessed because of the extraordinary contributions of the Portuguese community to Rhode Island. I say with great pride that I represent the congressional district in America that has the highest percentage of Portuguese Americans of any congressional district in the country, which is how I got to be co-chair of the Portuguese Caucus. But I hope the census will continue that tradition. But this is a relationship between our two countries which is long-standing, which is based on a shared set of values. As you know, Portugal was the first independent country to recognize America when we declared our independence, so it's the longest ally and friend of the United States. Jim Costa and I are working on a piece of legislation to address the investor visa issue, which didn't exist when Portugal joined the EU, so this is a piece of legislation that will fix that. I want to also acknowledge the extraordinary work of your ambassador. All ambassadors are not created equal, and Ambassador Vidal is someone we rely on a lot for his good advice and his knowledge and the deep respect that he has among the diplomatic community here in Washington, and not in a small way for the wonderful dinner parties that he hosts for us. Great Portuguese wine. But this is just a great celebration of an organization that does such important work that honors not only the very rich and wonderful history of this community, but the very bright and exciting future of the Portuguese American community in our country and our state. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to PALCUS for your leadership.
Since its founding, PALCUS has enjoyed a strong, positive partnership with the Embassy of Portugal in the United States. Ambassador Domingos Fezes Vital has been an integral part of that partnership in the last few years. It is my honor to invite to the podium the Ambassador of the Republic of Portugal, His Excellency Domingos Fezes Vital.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine. It's not a very easy task to be here between you and these wonderful wines. But anyway, I will try to be brief. Dear Senators, dear Congressman, Your Honor, dear Catherine Soares, caros membros da comunidade portuguesa e luso-americana, dear guests, first of all, I would like you to join me, and I'm sure that you'll be glad to do that, to join me in a round of applause to an extraordinary woman who's not with us physically today, but in spirit, our dear friend, Angela Simões. It is my great pleasure to be here tonight for the 2019 PALCUS Congressional reception. I wish to thank PALCUS for their leadership role in the Portuguese American community and for their cooperation with the Embassy of Portugal and consulates in the United States. Our role is strengthening the Portuguese American community is important, but is only a supportive role. The community itself is the lead actor, and PALCUS deserves recognition for their outstanding work. As you know, 2018 was a special year for Portugal in the United States. We organized the Month of Portugal under the mottos Portugal 900 Years Young and Neighbors Across the Ocean, to convey the ideas of Portugal as both an ancient and modern nation and of proximity between our two countries. Notwithstanding the support of my authorities, the Month of Portugal in the US would never have been such a success without the engagement of our community, through their participation in the events and their own initiatives, such as the first Portuguese American National Conference, organized by PALCUS in cooperation with the Embassy, a landmark moment in the history of the Portuguese American community. In fact, the conference brought together 400 representatives of Portuguese American life. But besides the sheer numbers, it also signaled to all of us and to the political leadership of the United States here in the capital of the nation, the strength and the capacity of our community if we act together. Several initiatives originated from this conference, showing that our actions can be consequential. I would like to stress in this context the importance of the Make Portuguese Count campaign launched by PALCUS. The Make Portuguese Count campaign has the full support of the Portuguese Foreign Ministry, the Embassy, and our consulates, as we believe an accurate account of the Portuguese-American community will provide a better and renewed sense of the importance of the Portuguese diaspora in the US, in the context of both our relative size in the melting pot of this great nation and of the Portuguese diaspora all over the world. For this reason, I encourage you to participate in the next US Census and write down clearly and proudly your Portuguese origin. Underlying all these initiatives is our understanding of how crucial civil societies are in the relations between countries, especially between democratic countries like Portugal and the United States. Our goal is to foster a better understanding between our peoples, to promote people-to-people exchanges, and therefore deepen our relations at the political, economic, scientific, and cultural levels. With this in mind, Portugal and the United States signed last February a Memorandum of Understanding on Youth Mobility that allows 400 young Portuguese citizens every year to gain professional experience in the United States through traineeships, whereas an equivalent number of US students will be available to study, work, and travel in Portugal for up to 12 months. I encourage you to spread the word about this opportunity. You can find more information on the Embassy's website under Study, Work, and Travel Program in Portugal. Dear friends, over the past 3 years, Portugal and the US have benefited from a growing trade relationship, and the US has become the 5th main trade partner of Portugal and the 1st outside the European Union. Our ambition is to reinforce our trade and investment relationship even more by bilaterally removing regulatory and administrative barriers that hinder economic exchanges between our countries. In particular, as many of you are aware, Portugal is one of only 5 EU countries whose businessmen do not qualify for E1, E2 investor visas.
Working on that.
This is, and I thank you for that. This exclusion means that our businessmen who wish to invest and create jobs in the US and jobs for the Portuguese-American community need to use a more cumbersome visa category to be able to enter and stay in the US to follow up their investments. In order to correct this iniquity, Congressman Jim Costa, Davi Nunes, and Davi Cicilline have introduced the Amigos Act that aims at extending to Portuguese businessmen and women the possibility of applying to E1 and E2 visas in order to make investment and create jobs in the US. And we are extremely grateful to them for what they've been doing. That is all we are asking. I also wish to encourage the Friends of Portugal in the Senate to take up this initiative under the leadership of Senator Jack Reed and introduce a similar proposal. My final words are to those of you who have Portuguese nationality. As you know, European and parliamentary elections will take place in Portugal this year. European elections will be held in May next. Portugal has introduced several legislative changes aimed at facilitating the electoral participation of our diaspora, namely by automatically registering for elections all those who have an ID Portuguese. If you are a Portuguese citizen, you must make your choice heard for the future of Portugal and of Europe. So I urge you to go and vote, first for the European elections on May 25th and 26th. That is also a way of making Portuguese count. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Next, I'd like to call up a gentleman who's become a true partner to PALCUS in what is likely the largest national initiative we have ever taken on. I invite Mr. Ronald Brown, U.S. Census National Partnership Coordinator, to the podium to say a few words on having partnered with PALCUS on Make Portuguese Count.
See, they always catch me off guard when they invite me and then they ask me to say a few words, because sometimes I'm not sure exactly what I should say. Marie and your chair and vice chair have already said quite a bit. But I must first thank the senator and thank the congressman, especially the congressman, because without them approving the budget for the U.S. Census Bureau, I probably wouldn't be here. But I thank them for the work they're doing. I thank them for the support of PALCUS and how we are reaching out. And it's always tough following the ambassador. I follow him because I like to have what he has rub off on me also, so that they see the stature, they see the support, they see the leadership of someone who is definitely committed to the Portuguese and Portuguese American population and how he has supported PALCUS in the Make Portuguese Count. So thank you, Mr. Ambassador. It's always an honor to be in your presence. Goal of this census is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. And you've heard about how the Portuguese population has grown, how they have moved into different areas around the country. But until we do a count, we really won't recognize exactly how prolific that has been and how many Portuguese and Portuguese Americans are out there. And the count will impact this country for 10 years. Because when we do the count in 2020, it won't be done again until 2030. Now, PALCUS has done quite a bit, and I know I can't do anything without getting Marie's guidance and blessing, because she pushes, and I'm glad she does, because then I get to spend time with each of you talking about the initiative of the 2020 census. But it's not just you. Yes, I know each of you are going to be counted, but it's the individuals in the community that need to get the message. They need to understand that they have to be counted. It impacts us in a number of ways. Yes, with congressional representation, states receive seats in Congress based on the population count for their states. But there's also going to be $675 billion redistributed back into communities based on the population count. Now, I don't think you can know of any community that can use some additional funding for the things that are going on. But when you get counted, what about everyone else of Portuguese, Portuguese Americans, of anyone else in communities? We have learned that for almost anyone missed in this census count, that could represent $2,000 per person in communities. And over a 10-year period of time, that is $20,000 that a community could lose out on if someone is not counted. They need to know that. They need to know how important it is for education, for school lunches and breakfasts, that those dollars go to support, for services in the community that people are using, whether it's hospital, whether it's transportation. People need to understand that if they are missed, that funds could be lost to those particular services. Make Portuguese Count is very important to get out into the communities. I'm glad there are captains being developed across the country that will help to mobilize communities. We stand right by your side, the Census Bureau and the partnership team, to help be out there speaking about the importance of the census and how everyone needs to be counted. I know Marie is not going to let me go too far without calling me and saying, we need you to do this. But she is also speaking with the leadership at the Census Bureau to make sure everyone gets the message that on that census form, you can write in Portuguese. And that's what needs to be done for Portuguese to be counted, for Portuguese to be identified. Right now, it has to be written in. But I know with what Marie is doing and what PALCUS is doing in the future, there will be a box there that only needs to be checked off, that they are Portuguese, Portuguese American. And then they will be able to see how that population has moved around the community, moved around the country, and how important they are to this country. I thank you for this time. I appreciate being here to share a little bit about this census count, how important it is. Don't let anyone walk by you without telling them or asking them, are you going to be counted in 2020? We're 1 year away from it. Please ask them. Thank you.
And to follow up on Mr. Brown's words, I invite Marie Fraley, PALCUS Managing Director and PALCUS National Census Director for the Make Portuguese Count campaign.
I'm the last speaker. I just wanted to tell you that. Thank you so so much, Catherine. And I do want to acknowledge all the work Catherine's put into this reception. She is taking care of every detail with this. So thank you very much, Catherine. And Mr. Ambassadors, senators and congressmen, members and guests. And I want to start, too, by recognizing this man that we've received so much support from Ron Brown, our partnership coordinator in the U.S. Census Bureau. Those of you who attended the national conference that the ambassador referred to, that was part of the month of Portugal, will remember that Ron was stationed outside in the lobby, and he set up an information desk. And so if you had an opportunity, you could stop by and talk to him. But he and I had a really long talk. And we realized that this was a partnership that could be really viable and really important for our community. And so we hatched a plan. So fast forward to the gala last October. And it was actually Juan Francisco and Angela and Catherine who put together a promotional video that was really energetic, and it was great. Did a great job with it. And we thought, well, let's get Ron Brown to come and say a few words. So he not only shows up, black tie, he buys a table for his whole family. His whole family. I mean, the man is working and he buys a table for the gala. I mean, we were just so impressed with him, and we continue to be. Now, I'd also want to thank personally the ambassador for your support and everything that you do to support us in more than just this project. So thank you so much. So we know why participating in census is important to our communities for all the reasons that Ron just said. But why is it important to us as Portuguese Americans? And it's quite simply because there is strength in numbers. And when we knock on the doors of senators and congressmen who do not know us so well, I mean, David Cicilline, Jack Reed, Jim Costa, okay, those are easy gets. But the ones who don't know us so well, you know what the first question is that they ask? They say, okay, so how many Portuguese are there in my district? And we can tell them, because we have been mining this census data like crazy. And so Pennsylvania, there's 20,000. Hawaii, there's 50,000. New Jersey, there's 76,000. Florida, there's almost 70,000. California, 350,000. Can I go on? No? You get the gist, though, because when you have that information to give them, they sit up and take notice, especially in the less known states where Portuguese are migrating to. There is a growth in Florida. People are retiring. There is a growth in North Carolina. People are looking for job opportunities. It's amazing. So we are in every state. We are everywhere. So just to cut to the chase here, how are we going to do this? How are we going to mobilize what we think is at least 1.34 million Portuguese Americans in this country? So the two strategy piece is one, the grassroots campaign, which means trying to register, mobilize, get a handle on 650 organizations that we know of in this country, Portuguese American organizations. And finding captains in each area, almost like running a political campaign, finding captains that will work with those organizations and defining for them a territory. We already have 7 in California. We have 3 in Florida. We have 4 in Massachusetts. And we're building. We have in New Jersey, I think we have about 3 already. So this is growing and growing. The other part of it is what is the process and how are we going to do this? The first part is raising awareness, which started with the gala and the kickoff, but that is continuing. Right now we're building the network, but in June, when we hope that the citizenship question is resolved one way or another, and we know exactly what that questionnaire will look like, we can start putting it out there. We can start showing people, this is question number 7 and this is how you fill it out. So those captains will be having informational sessions in their territories with their groups and giving them the materials that we will design and distribute. Then, come January next year, the mass media campaign will really kick in. And this is Catherine's forte, I gotta tell you. Social media, Portuguese print, broadcast, radio, TV, and public service announcements. And we're identifying people, we're calling them ambassadors to do the special kind of promo. These are trusted voices in our community who will be able to deliver the message. And we have one of them with us today. And I want to point out, if you don't already know him, is Pedro Bicudo, has former RTG correspondent and reporter, who's got the skills, who knows the community, and can deliver the message for us. So thank you. Thank you very much. So here we go. As Ron says, what we need to do is spread the word, get it going. You know, let's get some traction, let's get it moving. And I'm really pleased to say that we have a special message. And thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for teeing this up for us.
Hello, I'm Zeldin, the Secretary of State for Portuguese Communities Abroad. Let me say you that in 2020, the Public Administration of the United States of America launched the National Census. PALCUS, that is an important association of Portuguese and Luso-descendants and Luso-Americans, creates a national campaign to inform and sensibilize all Portuguese, Luso-descendants and Luso-Americans about the importance and the need to inscribe themselves as Portuguese. Let me underline the importance of the all mobilization of all Portuguese, Luso-descendants and Luso-Americans to this campaign. Hence, let's make Portuguese count.
Visit MakePortugueseCount.org for additional information and to join our mailing list. Together, let's make Portuguese count.
There you have it. We have the support of the U.S. Census Bureau. We have the support of the government of Portugal. All we need is us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I'd like to take a moment to introduce the PALCUS directors who are here with us this evening. Just please raise your hand as I introduce you. Fernando Rosa from Connecticut, our past chair and treasurer. Marie Fraley, our managing director from Rhode Island. Manuel Giraldo Sr. from Maryland, who's an assistant treasurer. Cynthia Brusso from New Jersey. Annabella de Cruz Mello from New Jersey, who's our secretary. Manuel Giraldo II from Washington, D.C. Senator Daniel DePont from Rhode Island, Lorinda Clemente from Virginia, and Lisa Morris from Massachusetts. Feel free to approach any of us to ask about our initiatives and our projects that are upcoming. Again, on behalf of Chairwoman Angela Simões, myself, and the entire PALCUS Board of Directors, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We hope you enjoy the rest of the evening, and visit palcus.org for any information that you need on our projects and initiatives. Thank you.
And become a member.
Oh yes, there are envelopes on the tables. If you're not already a member, please become a member. Thank you, Maria.
Wonderful. So that was streaming out on the website.
That was live on Facebook.